Okay, everybody, we're back from the short break from the last subject to part two. Hope you got a water or got a soda, whatever you got. I can show you what I got during my break. This is why I'm fat and overweight because these things are so damn good. These are Peppered Farm, like chocolate collection of cookies with Milanos and a whole bunch of other good cookies in there. Oh my God, are they good. Sorry I walked off camera there, but we got to put the cookies away. I had only like two or three of them, but you can see that's why I'm so fat. Anyway, so last video, we went over the scumbaggery of doing cover your ass letters, okay? And the scumbags that produced them. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about how do these things get structured? Meaning, how do they work, right? And how do you put a deal together? So let's get that done, shall we? Let me go grab my pen real quick. I'm going to go out of film again. Bear with me 1 second, everybody. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm trying to find my pen. Oh, it was right here. I didn't even have to go off the camera. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how it works, and then we're going to put some numbers in there, and we're going to kind of show you how to do this kind of thing, all right? So here's what we're going to do. All right, let's do this. All right, so here I am, and here you are. Let's move this thing out of the way. Let's get this out of the way, right? And let's go, no, we don't need that. Let's do this. Let's do that. We can get this over here. Right? Let me get this out of the way. All right, okay. So we're going to be talking about subject to financing, right? Let's get our light eagle. We're going to do, we'll do light yellow, all right? We'll get out of the eagle's colors. Okay, let's do some, let's show you how it works, and let's put some numbers in there, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so very simple. This is you, or the guru, okay? Here's the house you want to buy. $200,000 fair market value. Okay. This is the seller or sellers. Okay. Let's say they owe 180. And let's say it's 1,033 is their PITI. Now, these are just made up numbers. Okay, right off the top of my head, right? I love the number 33. It's my ice hockey number forever, baseball number. That's the number we're using, 1,033, because it's easy, okay? Now, so what we would do if we're trying to do this subject to financing is basically, first thing is we enter into an agreement of sale, okay? So you need to know how to write an agreement of sale with contingencies, okay? Don't pawn it off to somebody else. Learn how to do it. It's not hard. Okay, so we signed an agreement of sale that we're taking this subject to. Okay, by the way, one of the things I didn't show you is this, that this here is what we call a HUD 1, okay? And on here, this is why you go get a warranty deed, and this is why you can do an agreement of sale. This is why you do a HUD 1, you do an actual closing, because on here, I can't see the lines, I'm so blind. It looks like, 20 something, right, 203. Existing loans taken subject to, and under the seller side or borrower side, it says existing loans taken subject to. Okay, so it's on the HUD 1, it's also on the closing disclosures. I know I have it in here somewhere, okay? So that's why you do it. So it goes on the HUD 1, okay, on the closing disclosure. So it's there. So we sign this agreement of sale, right? And I'm just giving you the overview. And what happens? Okay, we are going to make this payment right here, okay? We're going to take that over. All right? This here is going to stay right here in their name until whenever we pay it off. Okay, then after we do all that, we go to closing. We get a, I say, get title insurance, get a home inspection, right? Change the homeowner's insurance, get everything signed by all the people who are on the deed, right? Don't forget, you need the authorization of release. You need the limited power of attorney, right? Authorization to talk on their behalf. All that stuff you need to get. So let's just say we did that. We go to closing. Everything's fine, okay? Cost you money out of your pocket, right? 5, 10,000 grand, 15,000, 10 grand, right? Whatever transfer tax is, okay? So we're not even going to talk about the money. So now you got it. So now, obviously, you are then going to, right, rent the property out. Rent. Now, the gurus are all going to say do a lease purchase option. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you that this, if you want to fail at real estate, do this. This equals failure. Guaranteed failure. Okay. Vinny, why is it failure? All the gurus say to do it. Here's what I can tell you. That's why they're gurus and I'm a teacher. Okay? That's why I'm an educator. I'm an investor. I've owned a lot of real estate. Okay? Here's what I'm going to tell you. There's only 3 types of people that do lease purchases. Now, I know I'm off subject regarding structuring the deal and putting the money, but you need to understand this, okay? You must understand this. 3 types of people that do a lease purchase, and they always fail. Now, you'll have better success if you listen to Vinny, okay, with people number 1. Who are people number 1? People number 1 are people that have no money. They're broke, no money, okay? So they go to you, the guru, who's selling their house that they have under subject to. Now, obviously, they can't put any money down. They have no money. Okay, so don't think you're going to get 5, 10% down and then make money every month and then charge them more than what the house is worth. That ain't happening. They don't have any money. So they're going to say, we'd like to do a lease purchase, say for 2 years. Now, you owe 180 and the house is worth 200. How are you going to sell it, A, for more than 200? Because they're going to tell, the gurus are going to say, sell it for 220. Okay, what happens when it only appraises for 200 in a year from now or 2 years from now? It appraises for the same damn number. And you owe 180 on it. But here's the problem, right? Let's say the fair market rent, let's just say it's, $1,100. And that's what they're paying you. And you write it up, and you're going to give them $200 a month towards the down payment. And everybody thinks that's great until you come to Vinny to get them a loan. And Vinny says, wait a minute. You wrote up this lease purchase at $1,000 a month. We ordered the appraisal, obviously with a fair market rent analysis. That's why you have to know what the fair market rents are. And when the fair market rent analysis came back from the appraiser, and that's why you always use appraisers and never realtors to find comps or fair market rents. You never use realtors, no matter what the gurus tell you. Always use appraisers, okay? I think I'm the only guru out there. I'm not a guru. I'm the only guy out there telling you that. Okay, they're all, get a realtor so you can pull comps. They don't know what the hell they're doing, most of them. Don't get a realtor. Get an appraiser. That's what they do for a living. So now the fair market rent came back at exactly what they're paying in rent. So guess what happens? They get 0 credit. Why? Because the rules say that you only get credit for anything that you pay over and above fair market rent on a lease purchase. Okay, so now let's just say it's $200,000 and they need 5% down. Okay? So take 200,000 times 5%. Well, that's 10 grand they need down, and now it's over 24 months. So divide it by 24. Okay. So now they'd have to give you, if fair market rent was $1,100, they got to give you $416 over and above that. So they got to give you 15 what? So let's just add 1,100 to that. $1,516. Now, how many people do you know that don't have any money are actually going to pay you $1,500 when the fair market rent is only $1,100? Doesn't happen. But that's just for the down payment. What about the closing costs? Are you willing to give up 3%? I hope you are. You're willing to give up 3% towards the closing cost. And guess what? That's $6,000 out of your profit. Now you can see there's no money in this deal. That's why you need to know how to run the numbers. Okay, so lease purchase number 1 doesn't work. Why? because they have no money. Unless you know how to write up a real lease purchase option, which means you got to go find what the fair market rent analysis is, what is the fair market. Then you got to find out how much money they're going to need down, whether it's 3.5% with FHA or whether it's 5% with Fannie Freddie, or maybe you could take them home ready and they put 3% down. Whatever the number is, divided by the number of months that your lease purchase is. Then take that and add that on top of the fair market rent, but you should put a little bit of a buffer in there. Maybe another $100 or $200 just in case that the fair market rent goes up in the next year or two. Okay? So that's why people, number one, fail, because nobody pays over and above fair market rent. Doesn't happen. And the realtors don't know how to write up a lease purchase. The seller certainly doesn't know how. So they fail all the time. Okay? Now, do gurus tell you that? Do the gurus know this? The people that you're paying $10,000, $20,000 to go to their subject to class? No. They just tell you to go get money down and charge them $2,000 a month and charge them $225,000. And meanwhile, they can't go to closing because the appraisal doesn't come in at value. The lease purchase didn't work because they didn't pay over fair market rent. Oh my God. Okay, let's go to people number two. Who's people number two? Okay, people number two are maybe you get some down payment from them because these people, though, however, they've got shit credit. They can't go buy a house from normal Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or FHA. Why? Because their credit is 400 or 500. They don't even have a 580, but they got money. Now they got money, but if they had a 580 credit score, they can go get FHA financing now, can't they? But they can't. Why? Because they got shit credit. Now, listen, they're probably not bad people. They just got bad habits. Or in the very small 1 percentile of the people with bad credit, something bad happened. A one-time occurrence that something happened. But that's very rare. Trust me. I've been doing this a long time. Not only did I own a lot of real estate and I rented to a lot of people, I also owned a mortgage company and sold people with bad credit all the time. I also owned a credit repair company that we did stuff pro bono and helped them out for free so that we can get them a loan at some point. So, the people with bad credit, they've got bad habits. They don't fix their bad habits. So what happens when you say, listen, I can give you 5% down? Sure, no problem. So they give you 10 grand down and you go piss it away, right? You don't go buy another property with it. You go spend it. Because, this is your first house and you got into real estate to pay your debt off, right? So you go pay a couple credit cards off. Okay, great. Fantastic. I'm happy. That's good. And then what happens? Okay, the people with bad habits and bad credit, they've paid you for 6 months now. And month 7 comes and it's 2 weeks late. Oh, I'm sorry. Don't worry. Yeah, something happened. But listen, check's in the mail. And by the end of the month, you get it. Thank God. Whew, at least I got it, right? Hey, you didn't put the late fee in there. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put it in the next one. Okay, great. Thank you. Are you going to have that out this week, right? Because, the first of the month is next week. Yeah, we're going to be all right. It was just a minor setback. All right, great, fantastic. So the next month rolls around, and what happens? You don't get paid. And 2 weeks in, you don't get paid. 3 weeks in, you get paid, and you're calling them. Listen, I'm sorry. Remember I told you what happened? Yeah, my mother passed away. Oh, my father passed away. My dog died. My sister's in the hospital, right? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, listen, take care of everything, and listen, let it go now. But try to get me caught up, okay? Yeah, that's fine. I'll get you caught up. Promise. No worries, man. Thanks for understanding. Okay, great. So they get caught up, but now they're almost a month behind all the time, right? They're paying you on the 25th, the 27th, the 28th, okay? Now they missed the next payment, and guess what? They don't answer your call now, and they don't answer your text. And they ghost you. And now it's 2 months has gone by. And you're calling them and calling them and calling them and calling them. And you're like, what the F is going on, right? You go knock on the door. Nobody answers. Dog's barking. They're not supposed to have a dog. So you leave. You're like, all right, listen, just forget this. And then what happens next, right? The next month rolls around. Now they're 3 months behind, right? And you send them out to pay rent or quit, right? And then you get a letter from their attorney, or they go file bankrupt, or something happens, and it takes you another 4 or 5 months to get them out. So now, this whole entire time that you took this property subject to financing, the money's coming out of your pocket because you spent the 5 or 10% down on your debt. But now you can't make the mortgage payments because your scumbag, I don't want to say that, your tenant, I take that word back, my apologies. I don't mean to call anybody that. Your tenant just has bad habits and they can't pay. They're not bad people and they're not scumbags. They just have bad habits. And their bad habits have caught up to you. And trust me, they never go to closing. And trust me, this happens every single time without failure. Period. Full stop. That's your second set of people. Now, here's your third set. Now, third set, you may get money up front. I'm not going to say you won't. That's fine. You will. They're the self-employed. They can't show you their tax returns. And they say, well, I need 2 years to fix my tax returns. Well, actually, I need 3 years, right? Because I got to do my previous 2. So I need a 3-year lease purchase. Yeah, I could give you $5,000-$10,000 up front, no problem. And they give you that, but they're just paying fair market rent. But do you honestly think that anybody who hasn't paid federal taxes in the last 20 years is going to go start paying the IRS now? You're out of your mind. It never happens. Now, unless you just want to keep renting to self-employed people where you take their down payment and their security deposit and their non-refundable option fee off of them, okay, that's fine. But how many of them are you constantly going to get? And here's the deal. They're not going to closing on your, but it's okay, right? Because you're just making the payments with that. So, but you better hope that everything goes well with them all the time, right? If they're good people, you might have a chance. But I can tell you this, they're not going to closing. You're going to have to get them a no-doc loan, which means they got to go DSCR loan, which, I don't know how they're going to do that. But you get my drift of why lease purchases don't work. So don't listen to the gurus that tell you to go do a lease purchase. Listen to the guy who's owned hundreds of homes, that has done rentals. And listen, I've done lease purchases that I've given to people. I knew there was no shot at them ever closing. And every single one of the lease purchases that I did was somebody with bad credit. Every single one. Not one of them was somebody who needed money. It was every one was people with bad credit. And I am telling you, you will not close. Period. Full stop. Okay, let's get back to what we were doing. All right? So there's your lease purchase. So if you want to fail, you do a lease purchase. You don't do it. Okay? So either rent it or sell it under other creative financing methods. Okay? So that's basically how subject to financing works. Now, here's the problem. Okay? Another scenario. Right? Or same scenario. So here's your seller, right? We're going to put our seller right here this time. This is our seller. Okay, and the seller has this house with a fair market value of $200,000. Okay? And yet he owes $180,000. Okay? And he is willing to do a subject to financing deal. He's willing to do it. And here you are. And you say, great, that's awesome. Fantastic. Yes, here's the problem. He has $20,000 in equity. Okay? 180 minus 200 is 20,000. That's equity, the difference between what you owe and what you sell for. That's equity. And he's got $20,000 of it, right? So now he's got his 20,000 and he says, Vinny, listen, I'm willing to do subject to financing with you, but I need my 20 grand. And you come back and you say, whoa, wait a minute, Mr. Seller. Let's be reasonable here. Number one, you've had it on the market for a long time. It hasn't sold. You haven't gotten a $200,000 offer. So why should I pay you $200,000 when, you've had it on the market for a year and you haven't gotten a $200,000, right? Now, I'm not saying it's a bad house. I am not saying that at all. It's a lovely house, and I'm not sure why you haven't sold it yet, right? But it hasn't sold. It's been on the market for a while. So usually that just tells me that, it could be overpriced, especially if there's not a lot of work that needs to be done on it. Now, if there's a lot of work that needs to be done, now you know why you're not selling it at 200,000. So you need to know all this before you go in, because then you know how you have to talk to the gentleman, right? But let's assume there's nothing wrong with it. So it must be overpriced. So now your first thing is like, it's been on the market for a long time. It tells me, believe it's overpriced, but you should know that because you've already talked to your appraiser up front before you went out to talk to the guy, and you know it's only worth 180, right? So now the next thing that you say is like, well, hold on, listen. Also, you've been trying to sell for sale by owner, or you had a realtor, you had to pay them 5%. That's 10 grand right off the get-go. If you're paying them 5, if you're paying them 6, it's more, it's 12, right? So I really don't want to, understand how that, let's just take that off the top, right? It's been on the market for a long time. We're going to take the realtor fee off. So I'd like to get it for, for the 180 for what's owed on it, right? So, but let's just say he says no. No. I want my $20,000 in equity, okay? Now, what are you going to do? What are you going to do when he says he wants his $20,000 in equity? Okay, when you're dealing with subject to financing, there's only 3 options you have here. Well, basically 2. Number 1, you have to pay the cash. Right? Now, you can what? You can, right? You pay it with cash, right? You can borrow it from somebody, not from a bank, right? But you can borrow it somewhere, somehow, right? So that's option number 1, right? Is to pay it, pay the equity, and then take the loan over subject to. So you pay equity, and then, hold on, pay equity, and then take subject to. Okay? That's number 1, and you can do that. Okay, now, what's option number 2, right? Number 2 is this, is a seller second. Meaning what? You say, listen, Mr. Seller, I don't have any money, but here's what I'm willing to do. Right? You want 20,000. Let's just do this. Let's do 20,000 with a 5-year balloon, and I'll give you interest only, right, for 1 year, and then we'll do 5% over the next 4, right? Or however you want to structure it. Let's do principal only, right? Let's do 20-year, 5-year balloon, and principal only at 5%, or principal only at 1%, right? However you want to structure it. So your options are basically 2 options here, right? They want their equity, right? They want their equity. So how are you going to give them their equity? Okay, number 1, you basically, you have it in your cash, in your bank, in your 401k, right? You borrow it from friends, family, from a bank, from your credit cards, however you can get it, right? You borrow it. Or you try to negotiate a seller second, right? And those terms are whatever you can make them, right? Principal only, right? For 2 years and a 2-year balloon. Principal only for 5 years and pay it off in 5. Interest only for 5 years and a balloon for the remaining, for the 20 grand, right? This way you get 5 years of interest only payments and still get your 20, right? Whatever, you got to learn how to run the numbers, right? But that's what you need. That's your options, right? I mean, you could try and borrow it from a hard money lender, but again, that's back in like option 1 where you're just paying it. But there's your only 2 options that you have for equity. You either have to pay the equity or you got to get a seller second. There's no other option, right? No other option. Listen, you can get super creative. You bring partners in and all this other silly stuff, right? You want to try and do, but this is what you have. Now, let me tell you a story. This is about one of my private students. my private student, right? My private student and his wife, which I have to call them soon. Let me tell you their story. Okay. So, I have a private student and his wife, very prim and proper, very professional people, very nice. They saw me at a seminar giving a speech, and I badmouthed subject to financing. They were in the front row. And I talked about subject to. I bashed it like I always do. And the guy raised his hand. He goes, yeah, I try to do subject to. And I go, and they laughed at you, right? He goes, no. They didn't laugh. I said, oh, okay. I said, but did the deal get done? He said, no. I said, okay, well, there you go. Right? Okay. He listened to my speech. I talked about something different. And of course, he became my student right away. And then he became a private student right away. Okay? So now we just got down and we started talking. And we're in class. And he says, hey, I want to tell you the story. I said, great. Let everybody learn the story. And he says, okay, well, here's the deal. I already bought a 5-unit from the fella who's selling another 5-unit. Now, 5-unit is already commercial property, okay? Because Fannie Mae is only 1 to 4. This is a 5-unit, okay? So now you're dealing with commercial financing. Now you're dealing with DSCR, which is a debt service coverage ratio instead of a DTI. All that's for another day, okay? So he purchased this 5-unit, okay? And they were now cash poor. But the owner had a sister property, another 5-unit. Damn, that's nice, right? They got another 5, and they want to buy it because they want the 2 of them right beside each other, right? So here was, I said, listen, just tell me the numbers and I'll tell you how you tried to structure it, right? And we're in class now. This is already after he failed. So he said, here's the numbers. For sale at $500,000. Seller owed $300,000. I said, say no more. You don't need to tell me anymore. Because A, I already know that you have no money. You told me, and you told all of us, well, not that you don't have any money, that you've already bought the first 5-unit and you spent all your cash. Now we know that you don't have $200,000 to pay. Because remember, it was $500,000 and he owed $300,000. So there's $200,000 in equity. So here is, this is their story, not mine. I'm not making this up. These are students of mine. You can ask any one of my students. They were in the class listening to the same thing I was. So this is what he told me. And I said, look, don't say the numbers because I want to guess at it. I want to guess at how you structured it. So he said, okay. So he said, this is what happened. We bought the 5-unit. We put 20% down, right, for $500,000, right? So that was all the money, the savings that they had at the time. And now they want to buy this other 5-unit a year later. And they don't have the money to put down. And they called him and said, listen, we'd like to buy it. Well, he called them and said, hey, listen, I'm putting the other one on the market. I know you're interested. If you like, I'll give you first dibs. And I'm like, yeah, we do want it, right? So they're trying to figure out a way to buy this property, okay? Now, what happened is they're trying to figure out a way. They hear a commercial for somebody who's teaching subject to financing down in Philadelphia. And they run down there faster than you could imagine. They run. And the guy teaches them subject to financing. And again, I'm not going to say how they, well, I know how they taught them to structure it because I'm going to tell you. Because I'm going to show you how this was done. Okay? So he tells me, he said, listen, Vinny. He goes, I'm going to tell you how it was. And then, then obviously you know. He's like, we heard this subject to financing, and now you got to remember, we didn't know anything else about real estate. We do nothing else. And we hear this method, and we're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now, why is it the greatest thing since sliced bread? It's the greatest thing since sliced bread because you don't know any other methods. You got the Dunning-Kruger effect. Oh my God. You hear this and now you think you're the smartest real estate investor that God's ever created. Meanwhile, you're living on Mount Stupid because you're talking about subject to financing to somebody who's got some smarts to them. So anyway, they cannot believe this is out there. This is unbelievable how great this is. Now you got to remember, most gurus sell this to you from the eyes of the buyer, not from the eyes of the seller. Because the seller's the one who makes the decisions, right? The gurus are trying to sell you an expensive program. So they're going to tell you from the eyes of the buyer, look how easy this is, right? Let me show you, right? You take the loan subject to financing, you do a second, boom, done, no money down, you're in like Flint, right? So he goes down there and he says, here's what we did. We learned subject to, but we didn't join his program. He gave us a free class and he helped us out. And we told him we were going to join. We were absolutely going to join. He says, but we practiced for 2 weeks at home. I practiced on my wife. And he goes, this was done. We were counting our money. Listen, I had this down pat. This was perfect. I'm just like, okay, right? I said, okay. And he's like, so after 2 weeks, right, of learning and practicing this, we went over to meet the seller. And I said, okay, stop right there. Let me jump in and let me see exactly how you tried to structure this deal. He said, okay, go ahead. I said, okay, here we go. All right. So we already know that he owes $300,000. It's $500,000. So we have $200,000 that we need to come up with. So here's what you said. You are going to take this subject to financing and just take over the payments, right? We know that because you learned subject to financing. You told us that. So we know we're taking that $300,000 subject to. Now, what are we going to do about this $200,000? Well, this is what we're going to do about this $200,000. Mr. Seller, we're going to give you we're going to do a seller second, okay? And for $200,000, we'll give you 10% interest for, let's just say, 8 years, an 8-year balloon. And if you want, we could do it interest only if you like. And we'll pay it off in 8 years. We'll pay you off in 8 years. And I said, that's how he said it. And I said, I guarantee he laughed at you and threw you out. I said that at the seminar, that he laughed at you, right? And threw you out. And he said, no, he didn't laugh. He didn't laugh. He didn't laugh at me. He said, but what he said, now this is in class in front of everybody. But what he did say was, he said, thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate your time, but I'm going to, respectfully, decline your offer. I'm not going to do that. But thank you for taking the time and, trying. But I appreciate it. But listen, if it's still in the market, if you can buy it, I'd love to sell it to you because you got the other one, right? Devastated is not the word. Devastated. 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 Why were they devastated? Because this guy and wife practiced for 2-3 weeks thinking this is going to get done, slam dunk, that how could he not take this deal? Now, by the way, that's not what his offer was. So I was wrong. What was his offer? Okay. His offer was not 10%. It was 6%. And it was not 8 years. It was 5 years. So let me show you on paper what it was. Okay, we'll go back to this. Okay, let's go back to this real quick. Okay, so what I said was $200,000, 10%, 8-year balloon. Okay, what it was it was 6% with a 5-year balloon. Meaning that you'll take $200,000 at 6% interest rate, right? Or interest only, whatever it was. And in 5 years, you owe the balance. Okay? Whatever's left over. If it's interest only, it's $200,000. If it's not interest only, you got to do an amortization schedule. So that's why all my students have one of these calculators, because it's easy to do an am schedule. So if we were to do an am schedule, right, and we did this, so we would do just like this, $200,000, right? $200,000 PV we said 6%, right? 6% and 60 months. That's 5 years, and we hit payment. So that payment would be, let's see, $3,866. Okay? So then we hit recall, or we hit other, and then we hit amortization, other, I can't see, other, amortization, and then we're going to put, oh, I'm sorry. This is how I apologize. My apologies. Let me re-show you how to do this. I forgot that we're amortizing it over 30 years. So the way you do it is you do $200,000, right, in PV. That's present value. Then you do 360 for 30 years, 6% in the payment, and that payment is $11.99. But that's so now. But here's what happens: you got to amortize it, right? And you do amortization, and then you do 60 payments, and then you hit the balance, right? And the balance in 5 years is 186. Okay, so in 5 years they owe them 186,000 and change. 186, 108, 186, 108. That's what it would be. That would be what the balloon payment is in 5 years. Okay, so I was wrong. I would have done a little bit higher interest. For me to get the deal done, I would have done a higher interest rate, a much higher interest rate, right? I would have tried a long-term balloon, but I would have settled for a 5-year balloon, right? But he went with a lower interest rate, right? And you know, a shorter balloon as well. So it didn't get done. Now, what's the moral of the story? Okay, I want you to put yourself in the seller's shoes, because these guys were devastated. Right? They couldn't believe it got turned down because they practiced this forever, and they were like, "Oh my God!" But now, that's looking at it from the buyer side. Let's look at it from the seller side. The seller has a $500,000 property that he's selling. Okay, it's a 5-unit. Okay, and he owes $300,000. So you come in, you're the guru, and you're just going to take subject to the $300,000, which means it's not getting paid off. Then he's going to sign his deed over to you. He's going to hand you the keys to the property, going to give you all 5 leases to the place, and you're going to give him, you know, a couple dollars a month. Well, you're giving him $1,100 for 5 years. He's literally got nothing else in his pocket. Nothing in his pocket. He's got lint in his pocket. Would you do that? Would you honestly do that? Would you hand the keys to somebody? Now, he knows them because they bought the other property. But would you sign your deed over to somebody like that, hand them the keys, give them the 5 leases, and all you're doing is signing a promissory note for a second mortgage, not even the first? No, you wouldn't. Neither did he. Now, let me tell you what the rest of what happened. So he was with me for a little while, okay? And he called me up. So he started learning all these other different methods. Okay? And he wasn't a private student yet, right? And he called me up around midnight, 1 o'clock, because he knows I'm up all night. So he called, because usually I'm running class till 2 o'clock in the morning. Like we were starting at like 8 o'clock. Sometimes I went till 2 o'clock in the morning. But that was after hours. Like we stopped at like, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. But then people would stay afterwards and ask 10 million questions. And I'd get out of there at 1 or 2 in the morning. So he called around midnight. And he said, and I think he was a little drunk. And he said, "Vinny, I got to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He said, "Listen, I've been thinking about this." He goes, "I can't believe what you have." He's like, "Man, I wish I'd known you sooner." He's like, "I wouldn't have embarrassed myself." He goes, "Listen, I want to tell you." He's like, when you said that the guy laughed at me?" He's like, "I didn't think he laughed at me, but now knowing what I know and knowing stuff that you know, but I didn't know any of this stuff. I only knew this. So I didn't think he laughed at me because let me tell you something." He's like, "I know he laughed at me behind my back because I'm so embarrassed that I offered this." He's like, "Not only am I laughing at myself behind my back, I don't even want to see the guy. Every time I go near it, I try to bury my head. It's like, I don't want to talk to the guy. I'm so embarrassed that I even offered that." I was like, "Why would you be embarrassed? You took a shot. You didn't know any better. Don't ever be embarrassed by that, right? You took a shot. At least you stepped up to the plate. A lot of people don't step up to the plate." He's like, "Yeah, but if I knew what you knew," he's like, I said, "Listen, even if you offered my method, it doesn't mean he would have went for it." He's like, "Yeah, but I would have had a better chance." I said, "Yeah, you would have had a way better chance. I agree with that, but it doesn't mean it would have got done." right? I don't know if my method would have worked either, because I think this guy just wanted his $200,000. And if you're not a buyer, right, with either the money, cash buyer, or somebody who's getting a loan, he he didn't want to do creative financing, no matter what type of creative financing it was, right? And I said, but he goes, listen, he's like, there's no doubt he laughed at me behind my back. He's like, I'm laughing at myself. My wife is even laughing. She's like, we're so embarrassed. He's like, I can't believe we thought it was good. He's like, we thought it was good. That's how crazy this is now, right? And the reason why is because you don't know any better. And that's what I'm telling you. When I say you don't know what I know, right? And what you don't know is that this subject too sucks, and I've got a better method. Now, I'm not telling you what that method is because it's my bread and butter. It's how I make my living, okay? But I am telling you, and you can talk to any one of my students, they will tell you. A lot of them came in with subject to, and wholesaling. They laugh at it now. They like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's so stupid because now they've got their mind open, right? Because they're educated, and that's what I do. I educate. Now, I know I'm not giving you my method here, so let's continue with subject to and how else can we do it, okay? So now, I'm sorry about that. Let me show you another. I have one that the other guru talked about. I have it written down, and I wrote it down because it was on a video, and I'm like, I can't be. I don't think I'm hearing this right, right? There's no way I'm hearing this right. I think this is it, but let me show you. Let me show you another way, right? The way that subject to used to work back in the day, okay? But I want to show you. I'm trying to find. I think this is the deal. Yeah, is this it? Hold on. Oh yeah, this is the guru one. Okay, all right. So let me show you. How this used to work back in the day. All right, let me show you this back in the day. All right, so this is how kind of, you got to remember, interest rates were very high back in the late 80s. Okay, so let me show you this. Okay, so here is the seller. Okay, and here's his house. Okay, and let's just say he owed, right, $100,000. Okay. And the fair market value was $140,000, and it was for sale at $140,000. Okay, and then here we are down here. Okay, and we're the buyer. Now, we're just a normal, everyday buyer. We're trying to buy a house. Okay, and we love this house. Okay, we love it. Here's the problem. It's late 80s, okay? And the interest rates are 18%. And that's why people today, they're thinking 6, 7%. Oh my God, rates are so high. Really, these rates are actually normal. These are normal rates. 2% is not normal rates, folks. If you don't believe me, just go back and look, right? This is normal. But people are so used to getting everything for free and at the lowest dollar amount, like you don't know how to act when you know. So anyway, this is how subject to was working, and this is why they threw in the clauses. This is why the clauses got put in there with the due on sale. So what would happen is that this buyer wanted to buy this seller's house. Okay? So he said, listen, I have money to put down, right? The guy says, okay. And let's just say, so it's for sale for $140,000, it was $100,000. He says, look, I'll put $40,000 down. And then I will take this subject to, okay? So he paid his equity, and he did. And now this guy only had, on this, he had like 18 years left, and he's at 9%, right? So now, and back then there was no due on sale clause, okay? So this is how properties were bought and sold, because they can get a lower interest rate, right? And another same kind of situation. Oh, sorry. Another kind of same situation, right? So you have the seller, okay? And here's his house. It's worth $200,000. He owes, right? It's the fair market value, and that's what it's for sale for. He's asking normal price. He owes 170. Okay. And here you are, the buyer, and you want to buy it, right? And this is, again, back in the day. And you say, listen, I'll buy it for 180. And the guy says, all right, I'll take the 180, right? I want to get out of here. So what happens? Okay, he owes 170, so he puts $10,000 down, and the 170 he does subject to financing. Okay, so there you go. And there's the 180, but there was no due on sale clause, so you can get away with it. But the banks caught on to this, right? And they're like, hey, there's no more of this bullshit. We're losing out on a lot of money. Because again, this 170 was at, let's just say, 8%. These new rates, here's the big bank over here, right? And the bank's saying, hey, rates are at 16% for 30-year, right? So hell with that. I'll give this guy 10 grand and take 8%, right? So that's what used to happen. So now, now the gurus all come in, right? And they're like, hey, we can show you how this is done, right? We'll teach you this, okay? But you need to understand, unless you have the equity to pay this guy, right? Because here's the deal. Let me tell you this. If you think for 1 second that you're going to get a hard money lender or a private lender, and this is what I was going to say the other number 3 was. And what do you mean by number 3? Okay, let me jump back. And I'm sorry I get up and I get down. I have a very bad back, and my knee, my hip, and my back get stiff. And every couple of minutes it gets stiff and it starts hurting. So I have to be constantly on the move. So I apologize for all the up and down. But this is what I'm talking about. Let me show you, right? So I told you that there was basically, there was 3 ways of paying the equity, okay? Right? 3 ways. But then I cut it down to 2, okay? And I was going to tell you the third, and I'm going to tell it to you now. But the 3 ways were, number 1 was to pay it, right? With either cash or borrowed funds, right? Meaning credit cards, friends, family, whatever, business partner. Okay? The second way was obviously to do a seller second. Okay? And the third way, which I was going to say, but I didn't say, was private or hard money. Okay? That was what number 3 was going to be. Now, I'm going to talk about private and hard money. Okay? Let me tell you about that. Okay. Here you go. There is no private or hard money lender that will ever, listen to these words, ever go into the second lien position, especially behind a seller second. Oh, Pace Morley has somebody. Yes. Pace Morley has somebody because he's got a bunch of students that are paying him money to learn this stupid method, okay? So the private lender knows that he's got all these fools paying all this money, so he knows that Pace can pay him back. And Pace was wealthy before he became a subject to idiot, right? And trust me, this shit doesn't work, okay? What he does is he pays the equity. Now, he'll tell you that he doesn't use any money. And I called him out. Now, I will never say it was my video that he changed. I won't say that because I know I am a nobody on social media. I'm a flea on his ass. I understand that. But when it comes to real estate investing, I'll bury him. He's got nothing on me. 0. And I mean 0. And here's exactly what I can tell you. Put any house out there, and we're talking strictly creative financing now, okay? Creative financing, and I am talking no money, 0 money, none of his money, none of my money, right? And none of his private money or anything else like that. He can go in there first or second. It doesn't matter. Matter of fact, we'll do it twice. The first house, he goes in first, has his pitch with his subject to bullshit. I'll go in second, and I guarantee you I will come out with a contract over him. Now, meaning that they're going to pick one or the other, okay? They're going to say, yes, I'll give it to one of you. I guarantee you I will come out with a contract. Guarantee you. Guaranteed without any questions asked, I will come out with a contract. It's not even close. And if you don't think so, you can ask any one of my students, all who were subject to fanatics, who loved that guy until they learned who I was and came to my class, okay, and got educated, okay, that learned this method and a lot of other methods, okay. Then the next house, I'll go in first, and he can go in second, and I guarantee you I will come out with a contract. Guarantee it, no questions asked. And I will put any amount of money on it, and all the money will go to charity. And I guarantee you I will not lose. That is an absolute guarantee, without question. Guaranteed. Okay? Now, he'll say that he's got a private lender that lends him the money, because he had a video that said, I bought this house without one penny out of my pocket. Not one dime. That it didn't cost a damn thing. Right? He bragged about how he put no money down and didn't have to use any money. Well, I did a video, and I said, okay, well, how did you pay the transfer tax with the deed? You said not one penny came out of your pocket. Right? How did you pay the transfer tax? The transfer tax, how did it get paid? Did the seller pay it? I guarantee they didn't pay it, doing subject to. Guaranteed. How did you pay for the title insurance? Well, I own a title company. Oh, okay. Well, they gave it to you for free. So, all the people that work there, they don't get paid on your deals. They just work for free. Right? They work for free for you. So you got to get title insurance. And if you buy a house without title insurance, you're a moron. You're not a real investor. Talk to any real investor, and they'll say, yeah, you want to buy that house, no title insurance? They'll say, you're an asshole. Yeah, go ahead. You're an idiot. How about a home inspection? Why would you buy a house and not even get it inspected? I don't care if it's brand new, right? Because I have a friend of mine, realtor friend of mine, right? And he just, listen, after 40 years, he just taught me something, right? And I thought I knew a lot, but we just flipped the house. It was a $2 million house, and it was brand new. And he said, Vinny, we got to do a home inspection. I said, a home inspection? It's got a home warranty. It's brand new. He said, Vinny, are you out of your mind? You got to do a home inspection. I'm like, why? He's like, how do you know that something wasn't installed right? I said, because you got your inspectors, you know who you hire. You should know that you're there as a general contractor. At least I'm there on the job site. I'm inspecting it, and then I've got the township inspecting it, right? So I should know. And he goes, oh, yeah, really? No one ever has a bad day. He goes, I could tell you, listen, so he went on just talking about how many things. Now, he sells like a lot of real estate, like like all these big giant condos go up, there's 200 units, and he's the realtor of these 200 units, or 200 units. And he said, listen, I can tell you that there's shit that is 100% wrong. And then he says, that also will tell you if there's any contractors that did anything wrong. So you should want to know before somebody comes and buy it if as a final inspection. And I said, you know what? That's actually a really good idea. I would have never thought about that. Why am I not doing a home inspection for myself after the house is built, just to make sure everything is done properly? Now, when I do a home inspection, I don't have the guy off the street who comes in and he's doing 5 appraisals a day because he's got to make his quota. No. You come to my house on a Saturday, I'll give you your day's rate plus a bonus, but I want you there all day from top to bottom. Because I want to know everything that's wrong. I want to know if there's a screw missing from a plate. I want to know everything if the screws aren't lined up properly. I want to know everything that's wrong. And guess what? This house that we were flipping for $2 million, there was a bunch of stuff that wasn't done properly. And it wasn't us that built it. It was these 2 realtors that built it, and it wasn't built properly. There was the list. I was shocked, and I said, "Now you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. That was a good idea, right? So they fixed everything on it, and then finally everybody got paid. But the point is that you should get a home inspection. So who paid for that? Now, when I put my video out after his video came out, and I'm not saying he changed it for me. I have not. I know I am a nobody on social media. I know that. But I am telling you, the following week, the next video that came out said, none of my own money. None of my own money. Then his video started saying, you watch his, go back to his old videos. They all said he never used any money. No money down, no money, no money, no money. Not a penny out of his pocket. Well, now you watch his videos now, and I can't watch 2 seconds of the guy, so I have other people watching and just tell me that he says none of my own money, that he has a private lender. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Forget him. A normal person like you going out there, talking to every private lender under the sun, private or hard money lender, and I guarantee you that you will not find one that will go in the second lien position, especially behind a subject to finance deal. You got to understand, these private and hard money lenders, they want security in the deal. And going in the second lien position is not security. Going in the second lien position behind a subject to deal, that's totally not security. So you're never going to get it. That's why I didn't bring it up, but you're never going to get it. No matter what that guy says. He's a scumbag. No, I take that back. He's not a scumbag. What he's selling is scumbag-ish. He's not a scumbag. I take that back. I apologize for saying that to you, Pace. You're not a scumbag. What you sell is garbage, and you're doing nothing but ripping people off and giving them false promises. You're giving them false profits is what you're doing, okay? Because they're paying you money thinking they're going to change their life, and they don't. And trust me, I know. I know. Believe me, I know. Because I can't say why, but trust me, I know. Because there's things in this world called NDAs out there, right? NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, right? Some people use them. I'm not saying he does, right? But there's some people out there, gurus, that make you sign an NDA, not to disclose what you've learned or talk bad about them or anything else like that. And I'm not saying he has them, and I'm not saying he forces people to sign them. But I know that, that product is not a good product. I know. Listen. Now, I'll say this. If you have money, and you have that money, and you want to try subject to financing and you want to pay the equity, that's fine, because you want to get a lower rate and a shorter term, right? What do I mean by that? Okay. Here's what I mean by that. Okay? So, let's do this. You find a house, and it's a nice house that can't sell, and it's got a fair market value of $300,000. Okay, that's what it's worth. Okay, and they're selling it, let's say, for $260,000, and it's in perfect shape, right? Maybe some lipstick. What do we call lipstick? Paint, rugs, the finishing little touches that doesn't cost a whole lot of money. They might need some lipstick. Other than that, it's a very good house. Great bones, good. It's got all the mechanicals are good. Everything's good, right? And the sellers will, and the seller is also would be interested in doing subject to financing if they get their equity, right? Now, selling for $250,000 and they owe, let's say, $225,000. Okay? So now you can pay them $25,000, right? Plus closing cost, right? Because you're going to have closing costs, right? Now, depending if there's a realtor involved or not, right? Now you can own that house. Now you'll get this. You'll get this, right? Right. No, I'm sorry. You'll get this $225,000. It might be at like 3% with 20 years left. So instead of getting a 30-year fixed rate at 7, you're going to get a 20-year loan at 3 with a nice low rate. Okay? But you got to come up with the money. Okay? You got to come up with that cash. That's what you want. Now, how does Pace Morley do his deals? I'll show you how he does his deals. Okay? Because I did see this video. I think we did a video on it, but I'll show you. Right? So he had a video. I think it was like $400,000 was the fair market value. Owed like 300, and it needed like 100K in work. It was in a shell, right? And there was realtors involved. And his student brought it. Okay? So now, I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to tell you to you. So a student brings him a deal in another state, right? And they're out at the house. Oh, we're going to show you how this deal is done. They're so proud. They're patting themselves on the back. They're all doing backflips. Why? Okay, well, let's look at the deal. So the student who brought it, Pace, paid him a $10,000 wholesale fee for bringing him the deal. Okay, that was nice. So what's the guy going to do? I'll put it right back into Pace's higher class. I'm going to give him 20 grand now because I want to learn more. Oh, my God. There's not any more to learn with, listen, guys, there's nothing more to learn with subject to financing. It's very simple. You're taking over somebody's payment, and you're either paying the equity or they're doing a seller second, or you're getting the house undervalued, right? That's it. So, you know, that could be number 4. Number 4, right? You're taking it as is with you know, what you owe. Okay? That could be number 4. Because that's the only things you have. You can either A, pay all the equity in cash, or whatever's agreed upon, you know, that's left. Number 2, you can do a seller second with it. Number 3, you can hopefully get a private lender that'll go into the second lien position, but that's highly unlikely, right? Or number 4, you just take it as is, and they give you all the equity. They give it to you. They just walk away. Now, why anybody walks away, I don't know. So, but I don't know how you can get any more like more education, right? There is no more education. Okay, so the student, he got 10 grand wholesale fee. So he's happy, okay? Now the realtors are happy. Yay, this is the greatest thing. Pace bought the house. Yay, Pace. You're the best. He bought a shell that was in 2x4s with no rugs, it was nothing. And he paid like, I don't know, he paid literally whatever she owed. I don't know. I think it was $200,000, $250,000 she owed. So he took that subject to, right? Then he gave her a seller second, right? No, I'm sorry. He did not give her a seller second. His private lender came in with the equity to pay her the difference. So now you got to understand, this is a fucking shell of a dump of a house in another state. So how are you ever going to do a fix and a flip in another state? Like fix this fucking property up? You can't. You don't even have contacts in another state. He's doing it for content so that he can sell his fucking program to unfucking knowing students that don't know any better. It's content for this guy. So the private lender, so he says, gives him the money to cover the difference, right? So it's like 200 grand subject to and 100,000 to the lady, right? So he buys it for $300,000. It's worth 400, maybe 450. So he's 100 to 150,000 into it. But I mean, with equity, okay? He also pays the realtors. They get paid. That's another like 50 grand, 40 grand they got paid out of pocket, right? I think it was like let's say the sales price was 300,000. Let's see, 300,000 times 5%, 15 grand. I thought for some reason it was like 20 grand, right? He pays the realtors. Oh, I think altogether with the realtors and his student and the closing costs. That's what it was, right? So he pays the realtors. He pays his student. He pays the closing cost. All from his private lender, right? That's where the money came from, so he said. And he goes to closing and he buys a shell. And he says, well, now my private lender is going to lend me the money to fix it up. Now, here's a few things that just drove me nuts on that video. Okay? Number one, if this was a good deal, and I'm talking about a really good deal, if this was a good deal, why didn't Pace give the student the private lender? Hey, here's my private lender. Right? Why did he just take it for himself? He's supposed to be a mentor, a teacher, a helper, somebody to help that. So he only gives them $10,000 measly dollars, and knowing full well the guy is giving it right back to him. So Pace knows he's not losing because he's screaming, I want to join the next higher level. I'll go to the next level. I'm going to get to the inner circle. I'm going to get to the mastermind. I can't wait. Look what I just did, $10,000. Oh my God, you fucking moron. Anyway, so it's cost $45,000 out of pocket just to get the deal. So the seller's happy. Why? Because she got rid of a dump and she got paid off. The realtor's happy because she got her commission. The student's happy because he got paid and he's got content. But is it a good deal? No, because now the private lender's got to go in and pay to fix the house up. Now, let's put you in that position. Let's put you as the person who's buying it. Number one, you're never going to get a private lender. It's going to go behind a second. So that deal's dead. Number two, why didn't Pace if it was a good deal, why didn't Pace give the student the private lender? Of course he didn't, because he's selfish. He's a pig. I mean, it's terrible. Now, I don't know if he's selfish and a pig. I take that back. I'm using these words about people that I'm sorry. I don't know him personally, and I don't know what kind of individual he is. I'm only specifically talking about his program. So let me make that clear. I'm not calling him names, and I'm not calling anybody else names, so I apologize. But why didn't he give the student, if this was a good deal, why didn't he say, hey, here's my private lender? And why didn't the private lender give the money to the student? And let the student do the deal. It's in his state, right? Why does this guy got to take it? He doesn't have enough money? Right? But it wasn't a good deal. So I think what he did it for content, and he saved this kid. But he got his money right back anyway, because the kid got to get to the inner circle, right? So think about it for 1 second. Now, let's say you got this deal. Let's say you paid the realtor and you took the house subject to, and you gave the lady a little bit of money. Okay. Now, guess what? That lady's mortgage is coming due every month, but you got a shell, so you can't rent it. You can't rent the house. You can't rent it. Okay, now you got to fix it up. So where's that money coming from? You got a first mortgage on a place subject to financing. Nobody's going to lend you money on that. And you're maxed almost, by the time you get it fixed up, you're maxed out on your loan to value. Meaning that, you got a $200,000 subject to, and you got to fix it up with another $100,000, right? You're almost maxed out on your loan to value on this house. How are you making the monthly payments to the lady, to your private lender, right? And to the lady's mortgage that he took over subject to financing? How's he making that payment? I'm talking about you, right? How are you going to do it? You can't. Then you got to fix the place up. It makes no sense. It's just a horrible deal. Now, let me show you another one that one of his disciples said happens. Okay? Let me show you another one. Now, if you believe this, I got a bridge to sell you. Okay? If you believe this, I feel bad for you. Okay. All right. $1 million value of the house. Property's worth $1 million. Got a first mortgage of only $450,000. Okay, I don't know what the principal and interest is. Okay, there's a second mortgage for $191. Okay? So, here was the deal. This was current, and this was delinquent, right? This is behind. This is going into foreclosure. Okay? Now, what would happen in a foreclosure? Well, the bank, this second lien bank, is going to foreclose. They're going to get the deed. They're going to take this property subject to. That's how subject to also works. So now the bank who foreclosed has this lien. What are they going to do? They're just going to sell. They're going to make these payments until they sell it. And then when they sell it, they're going to pay this off, get their 191 as well, right? And that's it. Done. Make their money. Okay? So now, one of Pace's disciples comes in and says, look at the deal that I did. I made a fortune. Okay. So right now, you can see that it is 500, well, it's 600, and, well, let's see, it's 450 plus 191 for a total of 641. Right? That's total. Or what we say, a CLTV. A CLTV is a combined loan to value. What's a combined loan to value? These two right here. The first and the second are combined for a total loan to value. So 641 divided by a million is 64 LTV. So you have a 64 LTV, and you have, well, 641 minus a million, right? You have $359,000 in equity. Okay, so that's some of the slang that we use, right? So we have, let me just erase this real quick. Okay. So what we have here is a 64% CLTV, combined loan to value. Because on the first, you have a 45% LTV. On the second, you basically have right around a 20% LTV, right? So combined, you got a 64 combined loan to value, adding the first and the second together. Okay, now, if you take 641,000 and minus a million, that's your equity. That's $359,000. Okay, so now you've got a lot of equity in there. Okay, and this is the issue that's in foreclosure. Okay, so $191,000, $450 on the current, and $1 million. So here's what they said. Okay, now remember, this is what they said. This is what the gurus have said. Okay, the gurus said that this is what happened. Now again, if you believe this, you're a moron. Okay, but I come on, please. It's such an insult on intelligence. Okay, so they said that they got this deal. They took the $450,000 subject to financing. They paid off the 191 with a private lender, their private lender. Now, that's not very hard to believe. Now, what do I mean by that? Vinny, you just got done saying no private lender will go in a second lien position. That is true. That is true. But there's always exceptions to the rule. Okay? What's one of the exceptions to the rule? Well, having a 64% loan to value could be an exception. Okay? And if you're personal friends with them, yeah. Because what are they looking at? Well, they're looking at $1 million, right? There's a 450 first. We're in it for 200,000. Now, worst case scenario is, right, we just sell it, we make our money. Now, let me ask you a question. If somebody is smart enough or intelligent enough to own $1 million property, right? They're current on their first, but not on their second. You don't think they can go borrow money to pay that off from somebody? That's number one. Number two, let's just say they couldn't find any money to borrow from anybody. Let me ask you this question. Are you just going to walk away from $350,000? Or are you just going to put the house up for sale? So here's your options. Let's go back and look at this on paper. I just want you to look at this one, and I want you to tell me what you would do. Not me. What would you do? Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay? So here's the deal. You have two options here. You can give it away, right? Give it away, and somebody's making $359,000. Right? That's an option, and that's what they said happened. Or you could just sell it, and you put give the realtor $60,000, and put $300,000 in your pocket. Now, obviously, the person who owns this house has a little bit of smarts to them. And you're not buying $1 million house if you're a dum-dum, unless it was given to you by your parents and you just squandered your life away. I don't know. But a couple things could happen. Number one, you can find a lender to pay this off, even though it's in foreclosure. Why? Because at a 64 LTV, at this loan to value right here, 64 LTV, okay, you can get stuff done, right? Especially if you're current on this and depending on your other stuff. Now, if you're not, okay, what are you going to do? You're just going to hand the keys to somebody else? Why are you walking away from $300,000, not $30,000, $359,000? Listen, you can pay the realtor at $1 million. If you pay him 6%, that's $60,000. So you're still walking with $299,000, $300,000, right? Who's walking away from $300,000? Who's just saying, here, take it? I don't know anybody in their right mind that just walks away from $300,000. We're talking $300,000. You honestly think that happened? Ask yourself, do you really think that somebody walked away from $300,000? Now, they said it happened, and what they did is they wound up selling it under a lease purchase for like $900,000. Now, if that's true, more power to you. But I absolutely 1,000% do not believe that at all. At all. I don't believe it for 1 second that somebody walked away from $300,000. I don't believe it. Not somebody who's got a little bit of intelligence, that had enough smarts to get to $1 million house. Because if listen, their first mortgage is current at $450,000. They're making money somehow. Okay? So if they're making money, why are they walking away from $359,000 in equity? They're not. So, okay. So there's the 30,000-foot overview of subject to financing. And again, if there's anybody out there that seriously wants to try this, I will help you with anything that you need. If you need a contract, I'll give it to you. If you need to, to learn how to put it in a trust, I'll help you. Right? If you want to put it in an LLC, I'll help you. Right? Whatever it is, I'll help you. Okay? Because honestly, I don't know many sellers that are going. Now, if you have money and you're going to put up the equity, or you have a private lender that will go behind a first behind a subject to first. Okay. Listen, that's easy squeezy. I'll help you all day long for free. We'll split it 70-30 when the house sells, or whatever money we collect on a monthly basis. But honestly, God, I don't think you're going to find one house to get this done. Not one. Now, you might find one. Let me tell you what you might find. Okay? You might find dumps that people are trying to dump and get rid of, that are just saying, whatever, take my payment, go ahead. But by the time you put all the money in fixing it up, you're not making any money. Right? You might. But just think about what you're taking. And if you're going to take those kind of houses, again, You got to pay the closing costs, you got to pay the transfer tax, and then you got to fix it up. So you still need access to money, right? You still need money, right? This is not my favorite way of doing deals. But again, I'll help anybody that wants my help. I'll help, right? So that's how you structure deals, okay? You structure deals by very simply taking the first mortgage subject to financing. This is very simple, folks. It's very, very, very simple. I'll show it to you again, all right? Because it's very, 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 very simple. Let me show it to you again, all right? So you know. Here we go. It's very simple, okay? Here's how you always structure a subject to finance deal. You have a house, okay? It's going to have a first mortgage on there, okay? And you're going to have a fair market value, and then you're going to have a first. Let's just say the fair market value is $330,000. And let's say they owe on the first mortgage $300,000. Okay? This, you're always going to take this subject to. Subject to the financing that's in place. Right? Because this is the kind of deal you're structuring. Now, the only thing you got to worry about next is the equity. Okay? And let's say there's $20,000. Now, you try to negotiate it down, right? So the first thing is negotiate it. Okay? Negotiate it to the best level. Make it win-win for everybody. Number two, you got to pay it. We're talking about the equity. Number three, create a seller second. Create a seller second. Okay. Number four, right? So we talked about hard money, private money, right? So we're not really doing that. So there's the way of doing a subject to. You always take the first subject to financing. Then you got to contend with the equity. So the first thing you do is you negotiate it the best you can. So you're either paying for it cash or borrowing it from somebody, whether it's private money, hard money, credit cards, whatever, you're paying it off. So they're gone. Or the seller's willing to hold back a note, which is what we call seller second or holding back paper. Okay? So they're holding back the note. You create the note, create the mortgage, right? Boom, done. And there you go. But you have to learn how to run the numbers, right? What do I mean by that? You have to know you got to run the numbers, right? Okay, if I'm taking the seller, if I am doing the first, okay, what's the principal, interest, tax, and insurance, right? Confirm that. Okay, that's why you need to know what the fair market rent is. Well, how much can I get from rent in here? Or if I do some type of seller financing, what can I get for it? Okay, am I making at least $500 profit? That was always my minimum, $500. Am I making $500 profit? Okay, how am I paying the seller, the realtors, and anybody else off? Right? Can I get away with not paying them? Can I negotiate this down? Right? There's no realtor involved. It's for sale by owner. Okay. It's a expired listing. Okay. Fine. There's no realtor. All right. So now I got a second. I negotiate it down. Now what? All right. I got enough money to pay, or B, I got them to do a seller second. Okay. So negotiate it to zero. You get a seller second, or you pay it. That's it. All the rest is just paperwork. But you got to run the numbers. Okay, the teller's taking a second. How much? For how long? How much equity is left in the house? How fast is the equity going up? Am I in a good market? Am I in a bad market? Am I in a market that just stays stagnant, or am I in a market that the equity goes up pretty good year after year? Right? Knowing that I can refinance. Now, what's also a non-owner occupied rate and term refi? Do you know what those are? Right? Here's what I can tell you. Everybody at the Golden Triangle Academy, one of the very first things we do is this. We teach you this stuff in the binder. What's this stuff? This stuff here is, what are the Fannie Mae guidelines? Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And what is that? These are the loan-to-value guidelines, right? So you're like, all right, well, listen, if they call the note due, what can I do? All right, well, if it's a non-owner occupied, right, single family investment property, no cash out, okay, I can go to 85 LTV, right? So if you live there, you can go to 95. If you did it for yourself, if you took the house subject to for yourself that you and your family live in it, well, you go to 95 LTV. Can I refinance it? Well, I got a tenant in there. All right, well, what LTV can I go to? I'm just going to do a simple rate and term refi, right? I can go to 85, but then I'm paying PMI. Maybe I don't want a PMI. Now I'm going to be in a negative. So you got to know how to run all these numbers. You have to know how to run the numbers. So, and we didn't get into that yet, but we will. That'll be on another video. But that's your 30,000-foot view of subject to financing. I think it's a horrible product. There's much better things out there. There's too many landmines. There's too much trouble floating around the corner. And really, you know, unless you do it the right way, you got to worry about that due on sale clause. But, you know, here's what I'm telling you. You might get one deal, and you may get two. But I guarantee you, you're not getting 10 or 15, right? Unless you got a lot of money to do it, okay? Unless you got a lot of money to start paying a lot of equity, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, right? Because if you can get a shorter term and a lower rate, better than what today's rates are, go for it. But just make sure that you know that you can refinance and pay the loan off if they call the note due. And if you can, that's great. Then you got nothing to worry about because you can just pay the note off, right? If they call the note due. So, all right. So there's our video for today. We still got more things to go over with it, but you got a good handle on it. Any questions you have, put them down there. I'll try to get to each and every one of them. So thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in class.